Good evening, folks, to those in attendance in person and to those watching online. I now call the Wednesday, June 20th, 2024 meeting of the Town of Farmville Planning Commission to order. Just a reminder for folks to silence their devices. And with that being said, we'll ask for a roll call.
Mr. Patterson,
Here.
Mr. Davenport,
Here.
Dr. Miller, Ms. O'Connor, Mr. Weiss, Mr. Crute, Ms. Fraley.
Here.
Alrighty, we have a healthy agenda tonight, and having had an opportunity to take a look at the agenda, would ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
I'll second.
It has been moved and second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes carry it. We will now have a consideration of the minutes from the April 17th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Having had a chance to review the minutes, are there any additions or corrections to offer?
I move that we approve the minutes as they are.
Second.
It has been moved and second to approve the minutes. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes carry it. The first order is our public participation. Speakers have 3 minutes to make statements on non-agenda items. Madam Clerk, are there any folks signed up for public participation?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience with us that would like to add their name? Perfect. So having moved forth, we will now have a public hearing for CUP 24-003 for Melvin Abil Ramirez, request for a conditional use permit to allow an automobile repair shop per Town Code Section 29-22.a. The 0.836 acre site is located at 513 East 3rd Street on parcel 0023A 042308-002. This property is zone B2 transactional commercial. We will have a staff report, public participation, and deliberation by the commission. So I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you. So this request is from Melvin Ramirez to operate an automobile repair service that specializes in tires at 513 East 3rd Street. The previous use of the site was an automobile sales facility. The site is located on East 3rd Street, a major thoroughfare through town. Adjacent businesses include Fisher Auto Parts, Rockwell Audio, and self-storage units. There is an existing tree buffer between the site and the single-family dwellings on Longwood Avenue. The parcel is currently zoned B2, Transitional Commercial District. Automobile repair service is allowed by conditional use permit in this district. Zoning ordinance considerations. The definition of an automobile repair service is a use which provides for the minor repair and or maintenance of automobiles, but does not include towing service or body work. The B2 Transitional Commercial District is intended to encompass the expanded major downtown center and to provide for its orderly expansion. Business District B2 should provide a framework for the perpetuation of a strong nucleus for the business community in which each business can enhance other business and where all the amenities and services of downtown can be provided. Business District B2 is intended to accommodate shopping facilities which can supply the needs of families living in the immediate area. At the same time, business in District B2 is intended to be relatively free of the nuisance effects which businesses can render on adjacent residential areas. Standards for this specific use are listed in Section 2935D1 of the Town Zoning Code. All automobile repair services shall meet the following minimum standards. All vehicles stored on the premises in excess of 72 hours shall be placed in a storage yard. No exterior display or storage of new or used automobile parts is permitted. There shall be no storage of motor vehicles in landscaped areas or within 10 feet of the public road right-of-way. The use shall be designed to ensure proper functioning of the site in regards to vehicle stacking, circulation, and turning movements. Comprehensive plan considerations for this project: existing land use is B2 transitional commercial, is intended to be a transitional zone between the downtown commercial areas, general commercial areas, and residential neighborhoods. This district makes room for light commercial uses that can serve neighborhood residents while fitting in with the character of nearby neighborhoods. The future land use classifies this as a mixed-use commercial area. The mixed-use commercial category builds on the transitional commercial district of the current zoning ordinance, still making room for light commercial uses that serve neighborhood residents. This property is connected to the town's public water and sewer system. There are no additional connections anticipated. There is adequate parking on site and no improvements are required to the public streets. This site is not located in a floodplain or other protected area. There are no impacted watercourses, steep slopes, or other atypical environmental factors. Emissions should be minimal for this commercial use. Findings and recommendations. The applicant narrative describes the shop as the selling and mounting, unmounting of tires. There are 2 garage doors, as you can see on these pictures. There's one on the front, and then it pulls through to the rear of the building. The 2 garage doors on the structure allow for easy ingress and egress of vehicles. Vehicles will be on the property for tire replacement only. No vehicles will be on the property at night. The applicant has provided additional information to include starting out with 2 employees with the possibility of expanding to 4. Tires will be stored indoors, and there will be a few tires on display for purchase inside the structure. This application appears to meet the standards of review for conditional use permits set forth in Section 2913C1 of the Town Zoning Ordinance. The application is consistent with the future land use map and the mixed-use commercial districts. There are no significant impacts to the capacities of the utility or transportation systems, and there are no significant impacts to the site or adjacent properties. Staff recommends approval with the following conditions. All vehicles stored on the premises in excess of 72 hours shall be placed in a storage yard. No exterior display or storage of new or used automobile parts is permitted. There shall be no storage of motor vehicles in landscaped areas or within 10 feet of the public road right-of-way, and the use shall be designed to ensure proper functioning of the site in regards to vehicle stacking, circulation, and turning movements. That concludes the staff report. The applicant is in the audience if you should have any questions during your discussion.
Thank you very much. For now, at this moment, if folks have any clarifying questions of staff regarding the report, please ask those.
The recommended conditions have been discussed with the applicant.
Did I put those in an email to you? I don't believe they've been written to the applicant.
One of the questions I had is this no exterior display of storage, and the storage is the thing I'm interested in. Curious about of new or used automobile parts is permitted. Is that I'm assuming that includes tires.
That does include tires.
So is there a space? Is there a plan to store the old tires? I'm sorry, I can't hear you, sir.
Container parking outside for storage tires, and the young tires is going to be removable every week or every 3 days. Depends on how big, how volume is going to be in it, but no storage for long. And the good tires is cut on the first room. It's going to be a stacking, but 4 tires show to the people how the tires it is, and then they make selections to buy in whatever they want.
So it sounds like there's not a plan to store for the interior display or storage of the new and old tires.
He can store them interior and on the inside. Right. He just can't store them tires stacked out in the parking lot for
Right.
the conditions.
But if I'm hearing what he says correctly, and I didn't wear my hearing aids, this is my bad. But you're saying that you're planning on storing the tires temporarily outside?
Yes, and in the container, the Ben trailer.
Oh, okay, container. Okay, my bad, my
Yeah.
bad. All right, sorry.
The applicant has asked for the possibility of putting a storage container on site. That would be an accessory structure to the use. We haven't discussed that portion of it.
So that'd be something that we would have to add.
You could add that as a condition.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions of staff or the applicant? Cool. We'll, if you stick around, we'll come back to discuss.
Okay, thank you.
But for now, we will just ask for a motion to open the public. Do we need a motion? Yep, a motion to open the public participation portion.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and second to open public participation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
The ayes carry it. Public participation speakers will have 3 minutes to make statements related to this public hearing. As you are called to come to the mic, just state your name, where you reside for the record, and then share your thoughts. So, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Bobby Husky.
Yes, I'm a resident of Farmville, Virginia. I live actually in Prince Edward County, just right outside the town limits. My wife and I own 2 properties across the street, and y'all pretty much have covered the questions that I would be asking. Is the storage, as long as that's done properly, I don't have any issues. I'm a small business person for many years, and I know what they go through, but at the same time, you got to have some guidelines and that type of thing. We want to keep our town continue to look good and thrive, you know, and I think y'all got it. I appreciate what y'all are doing, so thank you.
Appreciate that. Madam Clerk, any others?
We don't have any more speakers signed up.
Is there anyone in the audience that would care to offer comment? Perfect. If not, we will have a motion to close the public participation portion.
Motion to close the public participation.
Second.
It has been moved and second to close public participation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes carry it, and now we will move into deliberation from the commission. So it would seem to me that the addition of a temporary structure seems like a fairly reasonable add-on. So I'd love to hear thoughts about what folks might think about that. I just don't know, based on adding that, do any specifics need to be offered in terms of what that structure would entail?
I'm curious about the placement of where that structure would be on the property, and whether that would affect, you know, sort of traffic routing, turning, those sorts of things.
If you could hold the photo, yep, there. So would love to ask that question, Mr. Ramirez, if you've got anything to offer as to where you see a temporary storage structure for the tires being placed on the property? If you would.
Yeah, asking for the parking, that's right now outside. Some tires is gonna be inside. But, the mayor tire is, I'm trying, they're putting outside on the bench trailer.
So the question is, of adding a storage trailer like that would require a tack-on or additional condition that we can discuss, and as long as it's agreeable where it's located, I think that would be suitable. We just need to understand where would it be located? Where would you be planning on the property to locate a storage
Either way,
trailer?
in the parking lot on the back, so I don't know, you can tell me where I'm parking, so.
So behind the building?
Yeah, next to the building, so outside the parking lot, and then I don't know where, so it's your decision where you want it.
I think for me, if we were to add it, I'd love for it to be behind the building, out of sight, out of mind, as long as it wouldn't impede the traffic flow to get to the garage bay.
Do you know about the site? You're talking about a shipping container, like 10 by 40.
Either way,
That's
the shipping container or the van trailer, it's like the tires with removal.
Ah, right, okay.
Can you explain?
A trailer that's just the side guards on it that basically can be moved away to store tires
Okay.
in and then moved away.
Based on that, do we think that, to me, there would seem to be enough
No bigger
space?
than 10 by 40. I mean,
Okay.
you could say 10 by 40. I think is adequate. Does that 10 by 40 sound adequate?
That'll work.
Yeah. So no bigger than 10 by 40 placed in the rear of the structure.
Okay.
Would be,
I think the additional recommendations that staff have offered look really reasonable. Project certainly fits the definition that has been offered. And so if someone had a motion to add the additional condition, would welcome that.
I'll make the motion to approve CUP 24-003 with the conditions noted by staff, in addition to an accessory structure or accessory trailer storage unit no larger than 10 foot by 40 foot placed in the rear of the structure.
Second?
It has been moved and second to approve the project with staff recommendations with the addition offered for the structure. Although, well, do you need clarification on that motion, Madam Clerk?
What I have is a motion to approve the conditional use permit with the added condition of a storage container placed on the rear of the structure no larger than 10 by 40.
Cool.
Okay.
All righty. With that being said, Madam Clerk would love a roll call.
Ms. O'Connor, Mr. Weiss, Mr. Davenport,
Aye.
Mr. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Crute, Dr. Miller,
Aye.
Ms. Fraley.
Aye.
Cool. Project will be recommended to Town Council. All righty, item 7 on our agenda, a public hearing for CUP 24-004 for James and Lisa Gantz request for a conditional use permit to allow an accessory dwelling unit per Town Code Section 29-22.a. The 4,500 acre site is located at 1406 Spotswood Drive on parcel 0023A130A00-04A. This property is zone R1 low density residential. So we will start with a staff report.
Thank you. This request was from James and Lisa Gant to allow an accessory dwelling unit per Town Code Section 29-22A. The site is located at 1406 Spotswood Drive and zoned R1 Low Density Residential. The site consists of a single-family dwelling, 2 accessory structures or sheds, a pool, and a deck at the pool. Here is the aerial layout of the property. Accessory dwellings are permitted by conditional use permit in the R1 Low Density Residential District. An accessory dwelling is defined in Town Code, Section 2981, as a dwelling that exists as part of a principal dwelling or on the same lot as the principal dwelling and is subordinate in size to the principal dwelling. The R1 Low Density Residential District encompasses low-density, single-family residential areas, both existing and planned. This district should provide a suitable environment for families who desire quiet, spacious home sites with amenities of suburban living without fear of encroachment of dissimilar uses. The comprehensive plan considerations for the accessory dwelling unit are land use goals and strategies. The goal is to plan for a balance of compatible land uses meeting the community and economic needs of a growing town, and the strategy is to allow for a wider mix of residential types, including accessory dwellings and live and work area units. This property has access to the town's public water and sewer system. There should be no significant impact to public streets or transportation. The site is not located in the floodplain or other protected area, and there are no impacted watercourses, steep slopes, or other atypical environmental factors. Emissions should be standard for residential use. The applicant states in the application that this accessory dwelling unit will be used as a mother-in-law suite. The build site is at the far corner of the property, away from the neighbors. Here are a couple pictures of the existing site. Right about where this tree is where the driveway is proposed to go, and head down around the pool. And here is the vacant site as it sits now, where the accessory dwelling would go. Here's a rendering of what it would look like and a layout. The application appears to meet the standards of review for conditional use permits set forth in Section 2913C1 of the Town Zoning Ordinance. This application is consistent with the comprehensive plan. There are no significant impacts to the capacities of the utility or transportation systems, and there are no significant impacts to the site or adjacent properties. The staff recommends approval with the following conditions set forth in Section 2935B1. The structure shall comply with all setback requirements that apply to the primary structure, and the accessory dwelling shall comply with all applicable requirements of the State Department of Health and the Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code. No signage advertising or promoting the existence of the structure shall be permitted on the exterior of the structure or anywhere on the property. That concludes the staff report. The applicant is in the audience if the commissioners have any questions. Thank you.
Can you just scroll back to that photo where the driveway started? So based on what I'm looking at in the packet, just to clarify, based on where the driveway starts, it would end behind where the pool, the property would be behind where the pool, okay.
The driveway would go in, you see the existing drive right there.
Yep.
To the right of that, we would take out that tree and that brick post you see to the right, go straight parallel with that driveway around behind the pool and then cut straight across. If you'll flip to the other picture, right over, straight across in front of those pine trees.
Excellent. Thank you. Just to kind of go on record, Commissioner Crute is the neighbor to this property and did ask that his support be conveyed for the project. So I will just add that to the record. Any clarifying questions of staff or for the applicant? Perfect. So we will now ask that we have a motion to open a public hearing for this project.
So moved.
Second?
It has been moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes carry it. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up?
No, sir.
Anyone in the audience care to speak to the project? If not, we will have a motion to close public participation.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Ayes carried. Now we will deliberate. Any further thoughts from the commission? I think this is pretty straightforward.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of conditional use permit 24, tax 004 with the conditions noted in the staff report.
All righty.
Second.
It has been moved in second. All those, we'll ask for a roll call from the clerk.
Ms. O'Connor, Mr. Weiss, Mr. Davenport,
Aye.
Mr. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Crute, Dr. Miller,
Aye.
Ms. Fraley.
Aye.
All righty, item 8 on the agenda, a public hearing, ZTA 24-003. A public hearing for Planning Commission recommendation to Town Council to amend 29-22.A, Table 1 zoning use matrix of Article 3 of Chapter 29 of the Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance, allowing a restaurant mobile conditional use permit in the R3 zoning district. Madam Clerk, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, sir.
The resolution does not relate to this. Okay. Resolution first. Okay. Cool. So we will have staff report.
This proposed amendment would allow an owner of a mobile restaurant to apply for a conditional use permit to locate within the R3 zoning district. Staff recommends approval of the proposed ordinance amendment. If you have any questions, I can take them at this time.
So it strikes me that, and I like the idea of this, but it strikes me that food trucks might be a slightly different kind of business than, say, like a conventional, bricks and mortar restaurant. And so are there, any kind of existing, like, ordinances or regulations that affect, like, when a food truck can show up, and if it has to leave, when it does, like how long it can stay in one single place? Like, can you share some information on that?
Yes. So currently there is in the standards for specific uses, conditions for mobile restaurants. And it does specify, Monday through Thursday and Saturday and Sunday, Friday, what hours they can operate on which days. It specifies what type of signage they can have. So with the conditional use permit, we could pull in all of those conditions, and Planning Commission and Town Council could add additional conditions if they would like. But at the minimum, we would include what's already listed in Section 2935.
Any other clarifying questions for staff? If not, we will ask for a motion to open public participation.
Motion to open the public participation.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up?
No, sir.
We'll offer it to those in attendance, if you care to speak. If not, we'll take a motion to close public participation.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved in second to close public participation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All righty, deliberation from the commission.
looking for the, like, what the land use is now.
Is this one that's been driven, Ashley, by some folks that have interest?
Yes, and they've approached town council members about the possibility.
Okay. So that conditional use permit still comes back to us?
Yes, if somebody were to do a conditional use permit to locate a mobile restaurant in
Okay.
R3, it would come back to planning commission.
So that means in addition to what's laid out in the code based on the site, we'd still have the ability to look at some additional conditions if needed.
So I'm looking at, like, in the land use matrix right now, and I don't, am I missing?
I have the same question. I was thinking I should have looked at this earlier.
So are you looking for the use in the matrix?
Right.
It's under restaurant,
Okay, so it's by right in all the business districts. It's just nothing is allowed right now in any of the residential districts. Roger.
Mr. Weiss, I feel like we should have had some theme music as you came in. How you doing? Oh, you're fine. We are on item 8 on the agenda. Just finished public participation.
My questions have been answered because that means that there are, I'd have to look exactly, but there are already regulations there for mobile restaurants. So this would just be adding it as a condition instead of by right in the area. It seems appropriate.
It just strikes me, it's kind of interesting. So 16A, it says mobile restaurants must attain a town mobile restaurant permit, must be inspected or approved by the town at least 3 business days prior to initial operation. So they just have to kind of, instead of just kind of rolling up, they just have to, think way in advance to give enough time for the conditional use permit to be, heard by us and approved by council.
You're looking at least a 3-month process
Right. And now,
to be able to locate in an R3.
what would that be for every time they want to use it, or like for like a specific site, like a specific address?
Specific site.
So they could apply for it once and then come back to it like every day if they wanted to? Okay.
Perfect. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, again, apologies for being
Oh, you're totally
late.
fine.
I got here as soon as I could after the county meeting. Maybe this question has been asked already, pardon me for asking it. Did something prompt this request?
Yes, this was a question asked to town council members.
So I'm sorry, 2 town council members asked why we don't have this?
No, a citizen asked town council members to look into allowing this
In R3
in R3.
area? Okay. Is there a particular R3 area where this is better suited than others?
I think this one will tie into
To the
point 9
rezoning.
on the agenda. The
Got it.
Griffin Boulevard
I wondered if
to
they were
Edmonds.
related.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other thoughts? If not, if someone wants to do a motion, would welcome that.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of zoning text amendment 24 text 003 to the town council, or recommend approval, if that's not what I said.
Second?
It's been moved in second to recommend. Madam Clerk?
Ms. O'Connor, Mr. Weiss,
Yes.
Mr. Davenport,
Aye.
Mr. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Crute, Dr. Miller,
Aye.
Ms. Fraley.
Aye.
Cool. It's been moved that we recommend. Thank you all. So Item 9 is the tie-in to item 8 from what I've gathered. So this is a public hearing REZ 24-001 for the Planning Commission recommendation to Town Council to amend the official zoning map to provide for the rezoning of properties along Griffin Boulevard from High Street to Edmond Street from R1 to R3. And we'll take a staff report.
This request is to rezone 21 lots from R1 low-density residential to R3 high-density residential. There are 2 properties on High Street, 1 property on Chambers Street, and all of the other properties front on Griffin Boulevard from High Street to Edmond Street. Here is a vicinity map with the black dash lines showing the proposed parcels to be rezoned. The red lines are for all of the adjacent property owners. As you might notice there are some parcels that front on Griffin Boulevard that are not outlined with a dashed black line. These are properties owned by Longwood University, which does not fall under our zoning regulations, so those lots were omitted. High-density residential district R3 encompasses high-density residential areas, both existing and planned, as well as certain compatible public, semi-public, and very limited commercial land uses. This district should provide a suitable environment for persons desiring the amenities of apartment living and the convenience of being closest to shopping and employment centers and other community facilities. The comprehensive plan existing land use map designates the subject parcels as institutional, commercial, residential, and vacant. The future land use designates the subject parcels as low-density residential. The proposed rezoning to R2 is consistent with the future land use designation of a moderate density residential area. The area consists of smaller lot sizes, closer proximity to Farmville's downtown core, and a greater urban character. Moderate density residential would encourage new residential and light commercial uses, strengthen connections to existing neighborhoods in the downtown core through pedestrian connections and public spaces. All new development in this area should match the history, style, and character of the town in their design and materials. For a rezoning, there is no effect to utilities at this time. A rezoning will cause no impact to transportation or town streets. There are no environmental impacts. The rezoning would require a zoning map change, which has been proposed. This is the proposed zoning map, and then a zoomed-in version to the proposed parcels to be rezoned. The pale yellow is what is currently R1, and then the orange is R3 with the proposed rezoning. The rezoning would also require an amendment to the comprehensive plan. Staff recommends approval of the proposed rezoning and amendments to the official zoning map. I can take any questions at this time.
I'm just curious, so maybe I just want some reassurance more than anything else. But what are the criteria that you're using to determine the impact on transportation and roadways? If we're looking at rezoning this R3, which could have, if I remember R3, it's like up to 16 units per acre on a road that's already getting 7,500 annual trips a day. 75 daily trips, and that's looking to double, here in the next 2 years. That would seem to me to have a profound impact on a road that, I hazard every time I step foot on the son of a gun.
So most of the sites located in this area are smaller lots. I know there are 2 vacant parcels, and I'm going to guess you're probably about a half an acre. So even to get density on that half an acre, you're not getting 16 units. You might get, if they were to develop those 2 parcels, a triplex, possibly. It's not a whole lot of vacant parcels to develop in that area. Most of it is already developed. You have a funeral home, a barber shop, two barber shops. You don't have a whole lot of single-family homes in that area. There are some duplexes some rentals.
Yeah, I see that now, but again, and I hate to keep coming back to this truism, but, you know, we're also planning for the unborn. And the history, even recent history, has taught us that, you know, once we rezone things, that people often decide to change the use of that property. And we've also had cases come before us in which people have asked for lots to be combined in order to achieve a higher density. So I see what you're saying, the existing uses, but I mean, this could also, you know, open the door for much bigger developments, or at least plausible, you know, developments that, again, would seem to radically change, you know, the amount of traffic on that street. So I guess, you know, is there any kind of reassurance that can't happen? That, you know, there isn't going to be you know, more demands on, you know, the roadways and transportation?
I mean, I can't answer if there's a potential development. I don't know of any potential developments at this time in that area.
Mr. Chairman, to echo John's comments, as I understand sort of the density issue that he's raising, it's R1 now, so one residential unit per property, correct? To go to R3 would allow multifamily, which is 3 or more. So that triples the density in a long stretch of this road. So I can't help but wonder what is prompting this request, you know, several blocks worth of a rezoning to triple it. And sort of the corollary question is, was R2 considered as a little bit less dense than R3, but more dense than R1? Because like John's saying, I mean, the places that aren't even a residence now could become a residence. The vacant lots could be developed, a barber shop could be torn down and turned into multiple residents. So just if you can share just more context of what's behind this.
Sure. So this really stems from a resident wanting to have more options for a vacant parcel at the corner of Redford and Griffin Boulevard, which used to be a parking lot. So he was looking for a few more options to use that parcel. And then we looked at the rezoning. Can't rezone just that one parcel because it borders Longwood and R1. If we rezoned more area, we could get closer to the R3 to pull in the R3 zoning. R2 is not an option. It is not in that area.
So is the land that isn't Longwood on the east side of Griffin, is that already R3?
Correct, already
Okay.
R3.
All right. So explain again why R2 is not an option?
R2 is not in that area. So you would be creating a spot zoning.
Well, spot zoning would be for a particular parcel, but wouldn't R2 be more of a transitional, because you're talking about whatever, 20-some lots?
So you would still have the scenario of having businesses located in that area in a residential area where no businesses are allowed. So this also opens up that the businesses that are existing are now in compliance with the town code.
So the businesses that are there now are non-conforming, the grandfather
They're
basically uses
non-conforming
non-conforming, yeah.
uses.
Okay. Oh, sorry, one more question. The Moton Overlay District, is it south of the lots in question?
Correct.
So
So,
there's no
yeah, it does not-
connection
it
between
doesn't.
the two? Okay.
They don't cross. That and past Edmonds, you're getting into a much more residential heavy. There's very few businesses between Edmonds and Barrow Street. It's mostly single-family homes after Edmonds.
I don't mean to be particular, but funeral homes wouldn't be in compliance with R3. They're not allowed in any residential district. They're only allowed in, looks like B2 and B3.
Multifamily
No, they're not allowed in multifamily.
in R3.
No, ma'am. I don't think you can have R2 if I remember, because like that, there's no R2 contiguous. That would be the spot zoning. I think that's isn't that the definition of spot zoning, is like there's nothing contiguous, like if you just say that R2 right here, there's nothing like it's R2 around that would allow you to do that. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's a version of spot zoning. That's not the one meaning of it. I mean, this would be rezoning. I mean, somebody could argue this is spot zoning for R3, even though there's R3 across the street, because, you know, what's the rationale from going from R1, skipping over R2 to go to R3 here? Just because there's R3 across the street doesn't wipe out the argument of spot zoning.
I concur, yeah, I mean.
John, I appreciate your concern there, but honestly, I would wonder how many of these are already non-conforming. And I see that as more of a travel corridor as the problem than the businesses and or homes that are already there. That honestly is my take on this. I'm not as concerned about these particular areas because so many of them I think are already non-conforming to what the current zoning is, and it being more of a travel corridor than a collection of, like a collector. That really is what Griffin's turned into, is people are traveling that because it's a faster way to stay off of Main.
But I guess maybe this is the conversation better held over for the discussion period, but I think if you open it up to high-density residential, plus the other by right uses that exist in R3, then you're radically changing, you know, the nature of that road at the same time that it's already carrying a bunch of people.
So does anyone have any more clarifying questions of staff? We'll come back to the discussion.
I do have another question. Ashley, have the other property owners up and down, not just the one who sort of prompted this, but the other many weighed in one way or the other to you?
I did have one property owner reach out by phone, informed her of the meeting date and time, and said we'd love to have her come and give her comments, but we did not have anybody sign up to speak.
Alrighty, so let's move to the public participation. We'll ask for a motion to open, and then we'll come back to discuss. Is there a motion?
I'll move to open discussion or public comment.
Second.
It's been moved in second to open public participation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Madam Clerk?
No one has signed up to speak.
Anyone in the audience? Ms. Caden? Yep, you can come to the mic. Just give your name and address.
Hi, my name is Karen Caden, and I own a piece of property on Griffin Boulevard. It was the Scope Building, and when I purchased it, I was hoping to be able to make it into a duplex because it's surrounded by duplexes and rental properties, and because of the zoning R1, which I don't even know that there are many residential, just plain residential houses there. Most of it's, you know, rental and duplexes. I was hoping that the R3 would make that happen.
Thank you very much. Anyone else care to speak? All righty, we will ask for a motion to close public participation.
Motion to close public participation.
Second.
All those in favor of closing public participation signify by saying aye. Aye. Ayes carry it. We will now continue deliberation. Yep.
So my other comment, aside from the consideration of, again, traffic and the potential for, you know, can that road, you know, handle the capacity and handle the change in the usage? That's plausible. moving from R1 to R3, acknowledging, yeah, that there are existing non-conforming uses there, including residential, the other thing that kind of strikes me, that if this rezoning is prompted by, a single property owner wanting to do something different with how the property is currently zoned, and if that, property, and if that wish is just to have a food truck on the property, I mean, this seems like a drastically disproportionate way to handle that. And one that could, actually invite development contrary, to the well-documented wishes of the neighbors. For instance, last time, Ms. Caton was here, in front of the planning commission, they were, she and her partners were looking at, opening something that was, they were suggesting something as a convenience store, even though it wasn't quite like a convenience store. And the neighbors were pretty profoundly opposed to having a convenience store, in this neighborhood. And then a convenience store is one of the by right uses in R3. And so it seems to me that, if this is something that this property owner wants to have a food truck, there seems to be more kind of moderated, ways we could kind of handle that, other than a drastic, rezoning that kind of affects ways and that we don't anticipate and that aren't accounted for in the comprehensive plan, and that the neighbors are pretty clear that they don't want. So I just kind of offer that up for consideration.
Yeah, I think John makes a good point, and, with the list of R3 uses, whether by right or conditional use permit, is very long. And so are we, is staff trying to help a property owner make different use of the property, but with basically a much bigger solution than is necessary here? Because, again, I was just looking at the same map everybody's looking. This is a long, big solution for one particular owner. I come back to, maybe we should have done this in the reverse order, figured out whether this area should be rezoned, yes or no, or to what zoning classification, and then look at the food truck issue as a corollary to that, not food truck first. But nonetheless, I'm concerned, in addition to the other concerns raised, about sort of the creep of this rezoning. Griffin provides, I think, a sensible boundary, even though there are non-conforming uses that are on the west side. Where do we stop this? Okay, so we rezone, we hop over the street and rezone this whole several blocks to R3, and then does it keep going west? Well, what's the answer to that? No, we're just arbitrarily saying no more R3, where you have now R3 is going to be, the backyard of R3 is going to be touching the backyard of a bunch of R1s for several blocks. So, I just wonder, what floodgates we might be opening here. I think if there is a concern about the non-conforming uses that exist today, I mean, the rules are clear on that. As long as they're not increasing the nonconformity and they don't discontinue it for 2 years under the state code, they can keep doing it. To the extent there are vacant lots, it would be impermissible for somebody to say, well, there's a barber shop next to me, I want a barber shop too, because they're doing it. Well, but they were grandfathered in. That doesn't mean you were grandfathered in, because you weren't doing it before the zoning change. So I'm not too concerned about that argument. I am concerned about the long list of uses that we're creating if we were to rezone this to R3, in addition to concerns about traffic, tripling density, and so on.
Yeah, I think I've always just kind of struggled with what we know Griffin has become. you know, in some ways, it's already got that mixed use in the half that we are kind of pondering with this change. And so, yeah.
John, I mean, I don't know if this is possible, but if the only one that I'm seeing that stands out to me that aren't conditioned, that's different, conditional use or by right, is store neighborhood or neighborhood convenience store. And there was one other in there, special food or specialty food shop is by right in R3 as well. If that were potentially changed to conditional use permit in R3 as well, would that alleviate some of your concern with changing this to R3? And my reasoning for that is I think it's a more appropriate zoning for this area. I mean, I understand a lot of the concerns that are brought up, but I do think there's so many that are already non-conforming that it's more of an appropriate zoning for that. I mean, if you look at what R1 is meant to be, is spacious, not with fear of encroachment, that stuff already exists in these areas. I'm not sure you're gonna, I'll leave it at that. It really doesn't exist here already. The desire of R1 anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to your latter point, I mean, and Kim, I get your point too, but is this an opportunity to kind of, you know, to stop that kind of evolution and, you know, kind of aspire to what's in the comprehensive plan and what, you know, seems, you know, the logic and the conventional wisdom that informed that? I mean, it seems like, you know, like an easier solution would be just to, if it's, you know, about food trucks, then just to kind of, let's deal with the food truck. I mean, Jerry, I guess like to answer that, like, you know, rather than kind of, okay, let's change all the conditional uses in the matrix, can we just, you know, focus on the food truck if that's the issue here? And do something, you know, make that, you know, more kind of widely, you know, available.
I will say that that was discussed at town council, and the option for making a food truck conditional use in the R1 was not desirable.
So to be clear, all of this, or at least the genesis of this, is about one owner in this several blocks who wants to put a food truck on or in front of one particular lot? Is that what this is about?
That's one of the cases in the moment. But as Ms. Caton spoke, you know, she has also applied and tried, and we've talked multiple times about that, her structure, you know, what she can and can't do with it.
Right.
So it's, yes, this came to Planning Commission from one citizen, but it's more than just one.
So if we, to jump around a little bit here, if we were to not rezone this R3, but rezone it R2, R2 allows duplexes, and that would solve Karen's issue. Wouldn't solve the food truck issue, because we just said food trucks can be in R3, not R2. But like I said, maybe this was cart before the horse on food trucks. But, you know, I don't see how this could be spot zoning when, if we were to try to accommodate some of these requests by looking at 4 blocks worth of rezoning, at least on the frontage on Griffin. I don't know how that could be considered spot zoning, particularly if it's transitioning between R1 and R3, which is the nature of R2, almost by definition. But the motion before us and the public hearing before us is whether to rezone these 4 blocks, the frontage along Griffin, to R3. And there are single-family homes here. It's not like the whole thing is a nonconformity, right?
I was trying to remember my calculations for council meeting last month. I believe there was only one single-family home in those 4 blocks.
No, there's
2,
2 on,
closer to Edmonds.
yeah, so like right scope, and then 2 homes, Edmonds. opposite side along Longwood Home, residential home. So, yeah.
And those are already R3 across Griffin.
But you're also affecting, as Red has brought up too, the other homes that are adjacent to them or on the side streets as well. And again, those people were very clear about, what they wanted and didn't want, in their neighborhood. So I mean, if you go back to the conditional use permit, if that's what we got to do, and that, would kind of satisfy, create some checks or some opportunities for input, for say a convenience store in R3, but also allow for a diversity of use. Maybe that's a solution. Look what Jay was saying.
Yeah, and the reason I'm saying that is because when I read through the matrix, everything else except for that is basically the same between all the areas. It's just the density is the thing you're looking at. And these densities, maybe I shouldn't say density, but the uses have quite a few mixed use already going on there. And I mean, the lot sizes are smaller. This is not set up like an R1 area. I think whatever the case is, it's not zoned with what's already there.
Well, historically, it was set up like that. I mean,
So Jerry, is your point that there are just a couple of by right uses that are allowed in R3 that aren't in R1? Because there's a long list of conditional uses in R3 that by permit are allowed in R3 that aren't in R1.
That have either a conditional use or are the same. So the only one that's by right that I saw was neighborhood convenience store, and specialty food shop that appeared different to me.
So just as an example, this is the R1 column, that's the R3 column.
They're all conditional.
Exactly.
Right.
Right, and they're not allowed at all
Right.
in R1. So it's almost a whole page worth of uses.
I don't think I have any concerns that haven't been raised. My concern would be that we don't start something that then spreads. Because I'm looking at the map, and correct me if I'm wrong, and if I'm interpreting incorrectly, but some of these lots are even larger than the lots that are adjacent, like in the back. And so I don't know that we want to start a trend of making those R3 and then having the argument made that, well, these ones are significantly smaller, we could do that as well to those, which would then just sort of start to encroach into the neighborhoods. That's my concern, as well as John's concern about traffic and sidewalks and people. And I take my life into my hands crossing Griffin in the sidewalk.
I'm immensely sympathetic to the fact that the person is brought this forth has this lot that they are trying to figure out some great things of what to do with it. I think it makes sense in that particular area of Griffin, just given what's around it. But I just lock in on what might happen into the future.
I mean, I'll add this just for comment. It's not that I disagree either. But I do think this is something that Farmville has struggled with for a long time, is we prevent our centers from mixed uses. And what happens is you push small business and a more dense use in the center of town out away. I mean, you end up with large apartment complexes and big things outside of town that what we don't always think about is the traffic it creates through town. Because if where you're living is on the outside of town, you're still traveling into town to go to Walmart, traveling into town to go to Longwood. And I think this is a broad statement. It's not just right here. But Farmville's really always struggled with stopping density, stop density, stop density. And when it's in the right spots, I think it's actually the right thing to do, is allow density and mixed use to be able to grow in certain areas. I think it really comes down to, because it's not that I disagree with you, it really comes down to, is this area something that, you are willing to look at in the future and go, there are more mixed uses that can happen here. So, but I think Farmville has struggled with this for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Jerry, but, the Main Street and Third Street, are designed to kind of handle that through traffic use. And again, to kind of go back to the comprehensive plan, I mean, the community, and us as a commission said, hey, we want to leave Griffin R1. And so I think we've already made that decision, I guess is what I'm saying. And also, I think we did kind of create the opportunity with, I forget what it was, but over on Third Street where we created those opportunities for mixed use, to kind of create that density for retail, but also for multifamily housing too.
Just based on where everyone kind of is thought-wise, I will let folks kind of decide for themselves if they get to a moment where they feel comfortable to put forth a motion. But it sounds like we are reaching a moment where folks just have to kind of decide how they want to carry this forward. And then depending on the outcome, maybe town goes back to the table and ponders further.
It seems to me that we could table this, but for what? For more information, for what are we deferring it to? But maybe there's a reason to defer it. Seems to me we can either recommend or not recommend, but the sort of footnote is if the Planning Commission is so inclined to encourage staff to look at whether R2 might be a sensible solution to both the current request, but also the envisioned scenarios that we just discussed. But we can't, we didn't have a public hearing notice to change from R1 to R2, so we can't just sort of skip a step and do that tonight. What was noticed to the public was whether to change from R1 to R3.
depending on the outcome of what we do, council could go the opposite direction either way. Okay.
Well, then I'll make a motion just to move us along. I recommend that I move that the planning commission does not recommend approval of REZ 24 TAC 001 to the town council.
Second.
Madam Clerk, can you call me last? I need a moment to gather my thought, but you can go ahead.
Could you revise, Dr. Miller, that motion to, it's either approve the recommendation or deny the recommendation?
I move that the planning commission deny the recommendation.
Is there a second to Mr. Dr.
I
Miller's
seconded
motion?
it already.
Okay. Madam Clerk, I'll let you call.
Ms. O'Connor? Mr. Weiss?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Davenport?
Nay.
Mr. Patterson?
Can you circle back?
Mr. Crute? Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
And I'm going to go nay.
Now, that said, I hope the planning, I hope the planning department will, community department will consider R2. If that's plausible. I mean, it would work, for for that, it would work for, it just makes more sense if it's plausible.
Item 10, public hearing resolution 24-07-01. Planning Commission recommendation to Town Council to amend the comprehensive plan future land use map to reflect zoning amendment in ZTA 24-003 and REZ 24-001. Yep.
The proposed amendment for the resolution would be to the comprehensive plan to amend the future land use map to show the rezoned area as moderate density residential as opposed to low density residential.
This ties into number 9, correct?
So I think it should follow what we just did. So I'll let someone make that. Well, we need to, okay. Let me collect my thoughts. So, yeah. So if somebody wants to motion to open a public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor of the public hearing participation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes carry it. Commission deliberation. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience that would care to speak to this? Seeing none, we'll ask for a motion to close public participation.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of closing public participation signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Can I get a recap of the motions just now?
Yes. So there was a motion made. Oh, you mean who made the motion?
I just moved to close the public hearing. Are you going back to who opened the public hearing? I moved to close it.
Move to close. I move, or motion, or second.
Unanimous to close. Alrighty, deliberation.
I move that we close debate on this.
Okay. Do you have a motion?
My motion, well, the motion I just made was to close debate, to close discussion
Okay.
of this, so we can move along.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
It's been moved in second. Do you want a roll call on this? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So then, I guess the next thing would be moved that the planning commission does not recommend approval for REZ. Is that what you need? Yeah, I've moved that the planning commission recommend denying resolution number 20240701.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's been moved in second. Madam Clerk, would you like roll call?
Ms. O'Connor, Mr. Weiss,
Yes.
Mr. Davenport,
For this case, yes.
Mr. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Crute, Dr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Fraley.
Yes.
Alrighty. We will now, we do not have any old business before the commission. We will now move into new business, staff and department updates.
I'll give some updates on cases we heard previously. So Town Council approved conditional use permit 24-001, Hybrid Solars LLC's request for a major solar facility. And they approved ZTA 24-002 sidewalks at their June meeting. It's a few more updates is trying to get fences back to Planning Commission for the July meeting. We have another potential rezoning for the July meeting. And we also need to look at amending our bylaws. They have not been amended since 2019 with the new zoning code ordinance numbers. My plan is to try to get those on a month where we don't have too many cases. And Ms. Fraley, we loved having you for your first meeting. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
That's all the
Alrighty.
staff updates.
Thank you. Any items from commission members? Any other items of interest? If not, we will have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Good night.